So, you're a new player, or perhaps one that hasn't yet dabbled in the art of build crafting, and Bungie just unlocked every mod in the game for you. You don't know what to do or how to do it, so you find yourself on this video. The top 3 easiest to use meta builds for PvE. You hope that this video is going to go over some builds that, even without any experience whatsoever, you can pull off easily in day-to-day gameplay and reap the benefits of just how powerful they are. You hope that the video goes over the subclass and exotic synergies, what weapons and roles to use, as well as where to slot each and every mod. Okay, I'm done with the bit. Yes, fellow viewer, that is exactly what this video is about, so follow along. Click that subscribe button to see extra content from your boy, and without further ado, let's jump into the first of the 3 classes today, the Titan. Now, have you ever wanted to roam the battlefield with the speed of Mercury, the lightning of Zeus, and the presence of Thanatos? This isn't going to make much sense if you're not into mythology, but no matter. Just ask yourself, do you want to be a fucking badass and kill everything in the room with next to no effort? If the answer is yes, then let's take a look at the build. We're going to be utilizing the ever so overpowered storm grenades and ensuring that we have them up and available to us at almost every moment during a fight. To do this, let's first look at the subclass menu. Here, you're going to want to equip Thunder Crash as your super for burst DPS on bosses, since your grenades are going to be literally better than Fist of Havoc. You'll also want to equip the Thruster class ability, which we'll be using our exotic and mods to get the most out of. Next, throw on the Thunderclap melee ability, and also what's most important is to throw on the Storm Grenades. For the aspects, you'll want Touch of Thunder, which will allow your Storm Grenades to track enemies, meaning that even if your throw was inaccurate, your grenade will still eventually find its target, and also throw on the knockback aspect, which will mainly have around for the 2 fragment slots that it gives. For the fragments, put on Spark of Magnitude to make your nades last longer, then Spark of Shock to give your grenades better ad clear by allowing them to jolt targets, and then add Spark of Resistance to allow you to take more damage when near enemies, since some survivability should be prioritized with your barrier being replaced, and finally equip Spark of Recharge to get abilities back quicker when you are hurt. Now, the exotic we're going to pair with the setup is of course going to be Heart of Inmost Light, which here's a TLDR on how the exotic works. When you use an ability, let's say our Thrust, our other 2 abilities become empowered, meaning their regeneration gets increased significantly, and in the case of our grenades, they do more damage. Now, you could stop right here and have yourself a fairly effective build. Your main gameplay loop is going to be throwing your grenade and then using Thrust and your Thunderclap to empower your grenade energy recharge, then throw your grenade again, etc. However, there are a combination of mods plus weapons that can allow you to excel even further in terms of effectiveness, and the best part is you don't even really need to think in order to take advantage of these mods and weapon setup. So taking a look at mods first, let's talk about our gauntlets. Here I have a grenade kickstart to boost my grenade energy after I throw one, as well as elemental charge, which will convert any elemental wells that we pick up into stacks of charge with light. So how are we going to get our wells to spawn? Well, taking a look at the legs, next we have Reaping Wellmaker, which will spawn a well after we get a kill using our Thrust class ability. I also have Better Already here to give us heals when picking up Orbs of Power. Aside from Reaping Wellmaker, I also have on the helmet Elemental Ordnance, which will spawn wells after we get grenade kills, which we'll be getting very often, and next to this I have Harmonic Siphon, which will also spawn orbs when we get arc weapon kills, which we can utilize Better Already with. As well, I also have Ashes to Assets here, which will convert our grenade kills into super energy. So those are how we get the wells and how we have elemental charge convert them into stacks of light. So how are we going to spend those charges? Well, taking a look at the chest piece, here I have a firepower mod, which will give us grenade energy immediately upon throwing a grenade, and it'll also use up charges of light. And taking a look at the class item, not only do I have another firepower since the mod stack, but I also have 2 bomber mods to give us even more grenade energy by using an ability we'll be using the whole time anyways, our Thrust. Using this combination of mods, we'll be able to get grenades back at ridiculous speeds that Heart of Inmost Light could never, on its own, provide. Now that you know the mod synergies though, what weapons should you pair with this build? Well, you have two avenues, weapons with Volt Shot or weapons with Demo. Weapons with Volt Shot are nice because you'll be able to add clear in the rare downtime that you don't have a grenade active, so think weapons like the 𝗍𝗲𝗄𝗡 SMG with Feeding Frenzy Volt Shot, we have the Brigand's Law with it as well, or even the Path of Least Resistance if you're wanting a trace rifle. But you know, we can have a weapon that is the best of both worlds, and that is the Season of Plunder Scout Rifle Tarnished Metal. You can get a god roll of Demo and Volt Shot at the same time, allowing you to not only speed up grenade generation even more, but also jolt your enemies with the gun itself alongside your grenades. If you're starting to think that this whole grenade generation thing is overkill, it's not. Storm grenades provide some of the most powerful add clear and overall damage in the game, and you truly cannot get enough of them, I promise. And besides, the Titan mindset is to absolutely obliterate everything in your path first, and then ask questions later. So get out there, start slinging some storms, while we segue on over to our next build for the video, the Warlock. Now, my fellow Warlock brethren, with this build, you will be able to do the following. Get your super back near instantaneously. Throw double exploding nukes from your hands that burn and ignite all nearby targets. And finally, get said nukes back with lightning fast speeds using a specific weapon combo. Want to learn more? Let's begin. Here we have Starfire Protocol. This exotic states that you will be given 2 fusion grenades at one time when equipped, and those fusion grenades will recharge from empowered weapon damage, aka damage while in an empowering rift or well of radiance. Fusion grenade kills will also grant rift energy, so let's build into this. Opening up the subclass, we're going to go with Well of Radiance, Empowering Rift, your choice of melee ability, as well as the fusion grenade. For your aspects, you'll want Touch of Flame, as this was going to upgrade your fusion grenades, allowing them to explode twice per grenade, and the other aspect should be Icarus Dash for the added movement, as well as the 2 fragment slots. For fragments, we're going to want to equip Ember of Char, which will allow our solar ignitions to spread to affected targets. This is going to affect both our grenades and our weapon setup, as well as Ashes to give us more overall scored stacks. The last 2 fragments we want will go hand in hand. Firstly, Ember of Torches, which will allow our melee ability to grant us Radiant, which is a super easy damage buff to take advantage of, as well as Ember of Empyrean, which will allow us to extend this timer via solar weapon kills. Just like the Titan build beforehand, you could stop right here and have a damn fine build on your hands. You'll be able to proc the Radiant damage buff and keep it going with weapon kills. You'll be throwing very high damaging grenades and get them back consistently via your rifts and super, but let's up the ante a little bit, shall we? Let's increase not only our survivability, ability regen, and weapon damage by tenfold, but also give us a means to get our super back at such a fast rate, you'll be popping wells as if they were your regular rifts, and honestly, there's an exotic in the game called Phoenix Protocol, it doesn't even exist anymore. So first up, let's take a look at the helmet. Here, we are going to have Ashes to Assets. Note that I have an ammo finder mod here, but if you'd like, you can double up on Ashes to Assets to make them stack, but I find that one does the job for me personally. This mod is so strong with this build that the constant grenades that you are going to have and the constant add clear that you're going to be providing with those grenades, it is going to be giving you your super so fast that Starfire Protocol will double as the Phoenix Protocol, but even better. You are just going to be throwing grenades, getting kills, and watching your super bar fill up so quickly that you're not really going to know what to do with all the wells that you'll have. Now, alongside this, we also have the mod Bountiful Wells, which will double our elemental well drops whenever we make any. Now, moving on to the gauntlets, let's give ourselves a means to make said elemental wells by equipping elemental ordnance, which will spawn them on grenade kills. Here I also have grenade kickstart for just a bit of a boost to grenade energy after I throw one. Moving on to the chest piece, I have Font of Might, which will give us a 25% damage increase for solar weapons when picking up an elemental well, and this can also stack with the radiant buff that we get via our Well of Radiance or our melee ability. Next up for the boots, I have Seeking Wells, and this will allow the elemental wells to come to us instead of us to them. The reason for this mod is because we're going to be fairly stationary standing in our rifts and Well of Radiance so often, so we might as well have a means to get the elemental wells while staying true to the playstyle. Lastly, for the class item, I'm running a Bomber mod to get grenade energy back on a rift, as well as Well of Life, which I feel will add some nice survivability since we're using empowering and not healing rifts. Now, no build is complete without its weapon synergy, so as far as weapons are going to go, one of the first things I'm going to recommend here is going to be Witherhoard. Whenever you are fighting a boss, let's say, sticking the boss with Witherhoard is going to give you a constant tick of damage, which when sitting in a rift is going to be giving you a constant tick of grenade energy. Witherhoard is almost a must on this build, and I highly recommend always having it on. Now, aside from that, going on over to solar weapons that you might want, you're going to want to mostly use those that have incandescent to take advantage of the scorch stacks and ignitions that you can inflict on the enemies around you. Fun fact, did you know that the scorch damage that you deal via incandescent on a weapon will contribute to grenade energy when standing in a rift? If you didn't, now you know. I recommend here either the Retrace Path with Subsistence Incandescent, the 𝗟𝗟𝗔𝗗𝗢𝗏 Bane with Explosive Incandescent, the BXR55 with Demo Incandescent, or the Callus Mini Tool, which is a really strong pick here because it's going to give you survivability via Unrelenting and Incandescent. Some heavy weapons that you could take advantage of the Font of Might damage buff with could include picks like Gjallarhorn as well as Cataclysmic. In my humble opinion, this is the only build for Warlock that you will ever need to run. It's super easy to use, provides immense ad clear, insane boss damage, as well as supports you and your allies via the very frequent supers you'll be getting via Ashes to Assets being paired with your endless nades. That said, this build and the previous one were very ability focused. Let's end things off by talking about the Hunter and what kind of crazy shit you can get into when you combine a specific weapon loadout with an armor piece that makes you invincible at all times during an engagement. Alright, think of this next and final loadout as if you were playing as Batman, but if he used guns. You're an incredibly scary creature of the night, you're rarely seen, but in those moments where you are, you're incredibly deadly before taking back to the shadows once more. Enemies will not be able to see you for long to even lay a scratch on you because you'll either be invisible the entire time or they'll be dead before they know you're there. We're going to accomplish this playstyle using a very little known chess piece known as 𝗔𝗡𝗅𝗔𝗗𝗅 or 𝗔𝗔𝗩𝗅𝗔𝗅. I'm going to call it 𝗔𝗡𝗅𝗔𝗅, and pairing this with a very specific weapon arsenal to use it to its fullest degree. Firstly, what does 𝗔𝗡𝗅𝗔𝗗𝗅 do? Well, the exotic states that your void weapons will gain volatile rounds after emerging from being invisible. While invisible and finishing an enemy, you gain bonus weapon damage, and you and all nearby allies will also gain an overshield and improved class ability regen. Pretty nice, right? Well, let's make a few changes to our subclass to ensure that we have a near 100% uptime of invisibility. Firstly, start by choosing your super. I personally like Deadfall, then move over to select Marksman's Dodge, as we don't really need the benefit of having our melee ability up, and finally select your grenade of choice, which I highly recommend Vortex. For the aspects, you're going to want to pick Stylish Executioner. This will allow you to go invisible by defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target. Because we get volatile rounds when we exit invisibility, we'll constantly be proccing this aspect. Next, make sure to pick Vanishing Step, as this will allow you to initiate invisibility by dodging. Next, select your fragments. Here I recommend Echo of Persistence. This will allow your invisibility and Devour buffs to last longer. Speaking of Devour, I then want you to equip Echo of Starvation, which gives Devour by picking up an Orb of Power. Next, select the Echo of Remnants to boost your Vortex Grenade duration. And lastly, slot Echo of Undermining, which will allow said grenade to weaken targets and therefore let you go invisible when they're defeated. Again, just like previous builds, if this is all you want to go for on your hunter, that is 100% fine. The subclass and exotic armor synergy will speak for themselves, but you know I can't do y'all like that. There are some mods that we can slot here and some weapons we can throw on that will make this build strike fear even into the darkest of nights, including even Arkham Batman and all the badassery he brings. I'm sorry, I'm a Batman fanboy. Firstly, taking a look at the helmet, we're going to slot Ashes to Assets for super energy on grenade kills, Harmonic Siphon to create orbs with our void weapons, so this will allow us to get Devour, as well as Bountiful Wells to increase well production. Next, for the arms, we have Grenade Kickstart. If you can't tell, I like that mod, as well as Elemental Charge, which will convert said wells into charges of light. Going to the chest piece, we have Font of Might, which will give us a 25% damage bonus. Then on the boots, we have Reaping Wellmaker, which will make a well drop every time we use our class ability and then kill an enemy. And alongside Absolution and Insulation here, which will help us get our abilities back quicker as we pick up our Orbs of Power for Devour. Lastly, for our class item, we have High Energy Fire, which will consume our charges of light and convert them into even more bonus weapon damage. Of course, for the weapon composition, I'm sure many of you have seen Retrofit Escapade with its 4th times and target lock roll, which does just crazy things with volatile rounds from this build. But here I also have some other recommendations. Firstly, I recommend the Demolitionist and either Frenzy or Golden Tricorn Unforgiven. I know many people like to rock Repulsor Brace on some of these void weapons as a perk whenever it comes to using this loadout for overshields, but do you want me to be honest? In my opinion, you're never going to need an overshield when you're not only rocking high resilience, not only constantly refreshing Devour, but also you're literally invisible 99% of the time. Honestly, Repulsor Brace feels like a huge waste to me, but if you struggle with survivability, then I guess I could recommend it. For me though, just not something I'd like to use my perk slots on. Aside from Unforgiven, we also have the Velis X from the Ritual Vendors, which sports Repulsor in the first column with either Kill Clip or Golden Tricorn, and of course lastly, I gotta recommend Funnel Web with Subsistence and either Frenzy or Adrenaline. There are plenty of others you could use, but those are my personal top 3. Throw all this together and you have one of the strongest neutral game builds that Destiny has ever seen, which can double as a really good DPS build in things like raids or dungeons when using Retrofit Escapade, Taipan, etc. You're constantly invisible, constantly throwing weakening nades if you're using a weapon with demo, constantly ad clearing with volatile rounds, etc. and etc. Hunter is by far my least played class, but ever since I started using this build, it's probably one of my most played this season alone. And the best part about this build, and the best part of all the builds we discussed, is it requires nearly 0 brain power to take advantage of. Simply sit back and relax after a long day to play some Destiny, and with these builds you know that the most complicated things that you're going to be doing is for Titan, just throw a grenade, use barrier, and melee frequently. For Warlock, just deal damage and rifts while throwing grenades. And for Hunter, just dodge to go invisible and let the killing spree you inflict on your enemies keep you that way for the rest of the mission. All these builds are extremely easy to use, easy to set up, and most importantly, form an incredibly strong meta here in Destiny 2 PvE. With that said though, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for me today. I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and if you'd like, please feel free to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, or like the video. I got plenty more videos dropping from now going into Lightfall, and I'd love to have you around for the journey. Before ending things off, I just want to give some special thanks not only to those that watched the video to the end, but also to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members. For Patreon, here in Tier 2, we have Admis, Vile, John, Serenity, Boomer Noob, as well as Austin, Cinco, and Gloomy in Tier 3. And for my Tier 2 YouTube members, we have Bluesman, Clear, Imposter, Angel, Ben McClellan, Hank the Tank, Mayhem Gaming, Nimble Fox, Mamimi, Peak, and Serenity once more. With that said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.